Hello, sorry about that. OBS just totally froze on me right at the perfect moment for me basically saying hello and welcome to another episode of Sunday Night Live, and basically OBS just froze. I was just like, I can't click on anything. So I was having a panic, but it's okay now. At least it looks okay. I have no idea what happened there. So apologies. Not the slickest of starts ever, but anyway. Hope everybody is doing well. Welcome to another episode of Sunday Night Live with me, Jonny Lipsham, and it's the 23rd of October already, which means we are frighteningly close to Christmas. And I can't believe I just said the C word. There's two C words I try not to use. One of them is very, very rude. The other one is Christmas. And I prefer to only use those when, or rather the second one. I prefer to only use that one when we are within 5-6 weeks of Christmas. And so, you know, I'm talking like from the first week of November. That's when I prefer to use the second C word. The first one I try not to use at all. But yes, Christmas. And so I'm having to think about it because I'm involved in a lot of things this Christmas for the first time in a couple of years. I have all sorts of Christmas orientated things that have been ongoing since the end of August, actually. So yeah, but I still try and avoid talking about it until it's absolutely essential. Or talking about Christmas music, because that is something folks do create. Yes, absolutely. Even if I am involved in Christmas projects, which I have been since the summertime, I still try and avoid using the C word. I don't call it Christmas. I try and think of it in some other way. I try and call it something else. But, you know, it is what it is. We're just at this point in the year where I have to start thinking about it. And I really would rather not. However, I think, you know, the other week I did mention the C word because I talked about, you know, everybody kind of contributing a line of lyrics to this crazy Christmas song idea that I had. I don't know how well that's going to work because we have had absolutely zero contributions to it. So I don't know if that's actually going to work at all. But if you do want to be involved in it, then please do send your Christmas lyrics. And the plan is that once I've got enough lyrics from you guys for at least one verse and one chorus, we will improvise said Christmas song. So please do contribute those lyrics. I think the idea, as I recall, I'm trying to remember what I actually said, but as I recall, I think the idea is they've got to be possibly the worst Christmas lyrics you can imagine. So yeah, that's kind of that challenge. Next week is going to be the eve of Halloween. So Halloween being on the 31st. This Sunday we will be doing a Halloween themed show for Sunday Night Live. So we will be talking scary music and what makes music scary and kind of classic ingredients that you might want to think about for scary music. And so we're not talking about lyrics, we're talking simply about what evokes the emotion of fear when we listen to music, or we are wanting to evoke. So therefore, things that we want to put into our music to stoke up that emotion within our listener's mind. So yeah. So scary music will be the theme of next week, and the kind of things that we need to put into scary music to make it effectively scary. Now, we have a small crowd today. We only have like 12 people, which is a bit of a shame. Because actually last week we had nearly 30 people here last Sunday. So it's a bit of a shame that it's only 12 people. But alright, let's go and see who is actually here. And Tony Stringer was actually first in the door because he had a question, and he's not able to be here tonight. He says he's going to try and get an early night. But he had a question that he wanted us to tackle, which we will. So he's talking about wanting to basically slightly tweak the tuning of all the tracks in a song so that they are 442 rather than 440. And of course, obviously wanting to avoid the entire debate of 432. That has been well covered by people like Adam Neely, who actually did a very, very thorough debunking of the whole concept of why anybody should really be recording music in 432, A equals 432. So if you want a serious musicological answer to that question, go check out Adam Neely's videos on A equals 432. Because they are quite brilliant, and to be honest, he is absolutely right, and I totally concur his opinion, and I couldn't really improve upon it. And so that's why I've not done a video on it, because his video is that good. What more is there for me to say? You know, I can't really reinvent the wheel, so I'm not gonna. So that really is where that oh, Lollipop Guild, those lines are hilarious. Please email those lines to me, because those are brilliant. You guys that are actually posting lyrics for the Christmas song in the chat, please email those to me, and I would love to actually start writing the most horrendously cheesy Christmas song with those lyrics. That would be brilliant. So Tony, as I said, was first through the door, and John Hawk and Kyle Drudziak are here. Lollipop Guild is also here. Mike at Music to Motion is here. Kevin's Guitar Stories is here. Don Oliver is here. Keith, my good friend over in Canada, is here. Sean Aaron is here as well. And Roger Beckett is here. John Lake is here, which is great. And Paul Morgan is here as well. And Bob's New York is here writing in Russian, which is cool. Okay. But yeah, that's pretty much it. That's the number of people we have here. So this could be a very, very short show, considering attendance is so low tonight. So if you have Studio One questions, if you have songwriting questions, you know what? I'm just going to open this up to all questions. You know, so normally I kind of reserve some questions for Songwriting Simplified. So, you know, those kind of questions to do with music theory, musicology, arranging, composing, songwriting, those kind of things I tend to reserve for Songwriting Simplified. But really, you know, there's only 14 people here, so let's just throw open the floor to pretty much every question. And that would be cool. So if you've got questions about Studio One, particularly Studio One 6 and the new features, then get those in the chat now. If you've got questions about songwriting, arranging, composing, and all of that fun stuff that we normally reserve for Wednesdays, get those in. And I'm sure on Wednesday we will have a bonus edition where you can ask further questions on that subject. So yeah, get those in. And we can turn tonight into a really good discussion, seeing as there is a nice small little gathering. It would be nice if we get a few more people in here. So if you know people that you would normally see here, please do go grab them and tell them, hey, Sunday Night Live, come on, get over here. That would be very, very cool. All right, so let's get to Tony's question before we go too much further, seeing as he does actually have a question. And I've pinned his question to the top. And basically the question is, because he actually emailed this question to me as well. And he says, how to change a stem to 442 instead of 440. Now, his particular situation is that he's working with a client who is playing accordion, and his accordion was a little bit sharp. And so he wants to make all the other instruments equally that little bit sharp so that everything then fits in a little bit better. So they're a little bit more in tune. So we can do that. It's actually not that difficult to do. And even if you've got lots of stems, you can do this with, because there is a global tuning function in each track in the inspector. So not just the event inspector, but the track inspector. You don't have to do this on an event basis. You can do this on a track basis. in the track inspector, and you can just adjust the tuning up a little bit, and it will be enough to adjust the tuning completely for the whole song if you want to. So you can select all the tracks, and then you can just make this one change and it's done. So let's go and look in Studio One, and we'll see about how to do that. So let's go over here. So we've got a completely blank song here, and we want to find some loops of some kind that is going to be mostly monophonic. So let's just find something. So these are all chord sequences, so those are not any good to us. Let's try this one. This is all kind of out of my wheelhouse. Not really kind of what I'm looking for, but it was the first folder that kind of opened up. So let's close that. Let's close that. Let's see what else we've got in here. Loops. Let's see what this is. Now it's going to be harder to do because that has already adjusted pitches. Let's see. Yeah, these are all kind of electronica stuff. Let's try this. This might do the job. All right, we'll take this. This is in B minor. It's okay. We'll take this. So, let's say I have lots of these. I don't, but let's say we did. Let's see. Can I just grab another one? What about this one? Bring that one in as well. Everything's a little bit on the loud side. So we can bring everything down a little bit. All right, so let's duplicate this so that they are the same length. There we go. And then we'll just crossfade these. Perfecto. Let's loop this guy. Now, this is a kind of style of music that is way out of my wheelhouse. Totally out of my wheelhouse, in fact. But I'm just basically grabbing something so that we've got something that's giving us a little bit of context for what we want to do. I say we make this a little bit faster. All So now that we've got this, what we're going to do is we're going to open the inspector, and then down the bottom here, you will see that you've got transpose, which is not what we want, because transposing is going to shift the thing up or down a key. So it's either going to shift it up a half step or down a half step, or whatever your interval might be. This is not what we want to do for this example. What we want to do is we want to adjust the tuning. So let's say that we've got, some traditional Indian instrument that we want to add into this. And we know that our traditional instrument is going to be just a hair sharp, because there's no equal temperament in traditional Indian music. Doesn't exist. Western music, equal temperament. So we need to try and make these two things fit together. So you can use Melodyne, obviously. That's one way you can do it. But if you don't have Melodyne above Melodyne Essentials, you're not going to be able to do this. So, for example, if you've got an accordion part, that's a polyphonic part. Melodyne Essentials is not going to work on that polyphonic part because it's not designed to. If you've got editor or studio or assistant, then you can work on polyphonic material in Melodyne. You can't do that on Essentials. So if you've just got Melodyne Essentials, you're not going to be able to use Melodyne to tune things at all. It just won't have the desired effect. So if you don't have anything above Essential, then this is going to be the way to do it. So at the moment, Studio One has always defaulted to A equals 440. That's just kind of the standard. So that's just what it is. So knowing that piece of information, when tuning is set to 0, we know that this is 440. And each one of these, if I put this up 1, it's going to put it up by 1 cent. All the way up to 100. 100 cents would equal 1 semitone. Okay? So if I was to increase this by, let's say, 2 or 3, unless you've got really sharp ears or perfect pitch, you're not going to discern this difference. Now that's a half a semitone out. You should be able to detect that. If you can detect half a semitone, which is a quarter tone, then you should be able to hear this. That's what 50 cents is. 50 cents is the name of a rap artist, but 50 cents is also half a dollar, but 50 cents is also half a semitone. It's 50 extra cycles, so it's an extra half a semitone, okay? So this is now a quarter tone sharp. If you want to make A equals 442, somewhere between 40 and 60 is where you want to put this tune value. And then you can do this for every track by itself. We've only got 4 tracks, so if I now tune all of these to 50, kick and claps I'll leave, because these two are percussions, they don't need pitch. Actually, I didn't tune this one. Oh, that's the wrong one. That's transpose. Let's leave that one. So now those two parts are in tune with each other. Those two tracks are completely in tune with each other. So a quarter tone is pretty easy for most people to hear. So this person is really, Tony was only talking about going from 440 to 442, which is not a lot. It's discernible to most people, but it's not a massive deal. So that would be kind of, as I say, round about between 40 or 40 or 50 or so. And then it would be a case of you would just fine tune it from there. So you'd listen to your accordion part, and then you just fine tune until you find the sweet spot where both your already existing tracks and the accordion part are as close to in tune with each other as you can. The issue that Tony may have is that accordions are not completely in tune with themselves by design, because each when you press a key or a button on the accordion, it passes air over by the squeeze box aspect of an accordion. It pushes air over a set of reeds, and all of those reeds are ever so slightly out of tune with each other by design. So you have like a fundamental tone, which is in tune, and then the other overtones are not quite in tune. And that's what gives the accordion its distinctive sound, is that combination of in tune and out of tune overtones. So with something like an accordion, it's going to be quite hard to get it to sit in the right spot. So you're going to have to experiment a bit, but it is possible to do it. And I do believe, if memory serves, somewhere in options, there is a global tune somewhere, I think. I may be wrong about this. I may be wildly wrong about this, but I was pretty sure. I mean, the sample rate, but I was fairly sure that somewhere here, there was a global tuning thing, but I could be wrong. Yeah, it looks like I'm wrong. Okay, forget that. I'm wrong. But yes, that's how you go about it. You do it here in the track inspector, not the event inspector, the track inspector, to make sure everything is at the pitch that you want it to be. And that's the best way to do it. Don't do it on the event level. Don't try selecting all events and then do it this way. Do it via the track inspector, and you just select the track header and you get the track inspector. If you select an event, you'll get information for that event. See how this is now zeroed out? Transpose and tune is zeroed. But if I go back to the track inspector, we can now see the tune is changed. All right. Oh, that one didn't change. Maybe I was changing the event. Maybe I was changing the event all along, in which case, that's my bad. There we go. All right, so that's how you change that. What temperament is Indian music in? It's in many different temperaments, because there is no unified or codified temperament within Indian classical music. So yeah, because basically Indian music is very much what we would call in the West, we would call it microtonal, because they have tones that exist between semitones. So they have things like half sharps, half flats, half naturals, sort of a sharp natural or a flat natural. So they have all of those microtones within their intonation system. Which is why Indian music, to the Western ear, to the Western trained and the Western conditioned ear, Indian music just frankly sounds a little bit weird, and sometimes maybe even a little bit out of tune. But it's not. It's to them, it's not out of tune. To them, it is perfectly in tune. It's just to us in the West, it isn't, because in the West, our ears are conditioned to being able to hear and understand 12-tone equal temperament, specifically 12-tone equal temperament, because that is what Western classical music from about 1820 onwards and popular music is all based around. It's all based around 12-tone equal temperament, and even actually late Baroque music and into the classical period, it's still 12-tone equal temperament. I mean, that's why Johann Sebastian Bach wrote his 48 Preludes and Fugues. That was to celebrate the advent of 12-tone equal temperament, based on some Pythagorean maths, basically. But yeah, so when you are wanting to meld Indian music, traditional Indian classical music with Western music, You have to bear those kind of things in mind. So you either tune Western music to an Indian intonation system, or you do the opposite. Depends upon what you're trying to do. Are you trying to bring Indian music into a Western context? So maybe kind of Western sounding popular music with Indian instruments kind of on the top or within the arrangement, then you would want to make those Indian instruments conform to your 12-tone equal temperament. And they can do it. It's just there is a different way of playing those instruments, or there is a different approach to singing in that Indian style to make it conform to 12-tone equal temperament. So it would work. You just have to adjust. All right, so let's see. Mike says that he shared the live stream link on my personal profile. Hope some folks will pop in with questions. Cool. Old School Funk and Soul says, what we listen to with these loops. Yeah, you came in late. He says, loops sound great. Just got Toolbox Reloaded sound set for free, which is, yes. The Toolbox, if you already had the Culture Sounds, isn't it? Culture Sounds Toolbox. If you had the original one, there is a new update for that just released with a whole bunch of new presets and everything. It is very, very cool. I have it. I haven't done anything with it yet, but I do actually have it, and I'm hoping that I will get some downtime with which I can play with it. I have to bear in mind, it's not really kind of my wheelhouse, but there are some really, really, really insanely useful macros in the Culture Sounds Toolbox macro toolbar. It's freaking awesome. And the interesting thing is, a lot of people are just like, oh, why aren't these features already in Studio One? Well, the whole thing with macros is they're already there. All the commands are already there. The feature set is already there in Studio One 6. It's just that the macro toolbar fires off all these commands and makes it incredibly easy to do tasks that maybe would take 3, maybe 4 clicks into something that just takes 1. Which is what macros are for. But that's, essentially the big misunderstanding about macros is that macros are designed to make life easy in Studio One and to improve how you use the feature set that's actually already there. So, but that's a good question. I'm going to go back over here just for a wee minute. Any old synthesizer was always guilty of changing pitch over the course of a session. Absolutely. I can remember working with some old Moog synths, and you had to tune it before you did a take. And if you didn't nail the take and you needed to do it again, you had to then spend half an hour retuning the synth, and then you'd go again. There's a very, very famous story of, I forget the synth that they were using, but Donald Fagen and Walter Becker were recording tracks for the Gaucho album, I think it was, in 1980. And it was released in 1980, but the sessions were in like 78 and 79. It was like a 3-year project. And whilst they were recording synth parts for that, Donald got so annoyed with having to retune the damn thing after a take that he and Walter basically took the synth to a window in the building in which the studio they were working in was housed, which I think was on like the 6th or 7th floor or something like that. And they opened the window and they checked that there was nobody down below, and they dropped the synth out of the window and it smashed into smithereens on the floor. And from what I can gather, they gathered up all the broken bits of this synth, and it now sits in the museum for that particular studio. So that's kind of an interesting little story about old synths. Yeah, for sure. So training your ear on Indian music is good. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Training your ear on as many different musics from around the world, I think, is essential to being a well-rounded musician. Most Western musicians, either from Europe or the United States, we don't by and largely do this. We by and largely just immerse ourselves in the particular genre of music that we enjoy playing. So in my case, that's going to be jazz. In your case, that might be metal. It could be rock. It could be, it could be pop. It could be R&B. Whatever that is for you in particular, take time to go and learn some other, not just genres of music, but other styles of music, but music from other cultures, including India. India has so many different forms of music, depending upon what region of India you are based in. And there are different rules, there are different scales, there are different systems for deriving harmony for songs. Now, you also get music in India that is very heavily influenced by Western music. And you hear this by and largely in Bollywood films, where the music is clearly Indian, but it's also clearly Western as well. There's a big Western influence. And so this is where you particularly see this blend, this syncretism between the different intonations, the different tonalities come together. And you've got to decide which one is going to be the foundational. So in the case of most Bollywood music, the foundation is Western 12-tone equal temperament. And then the traditional Indian sounds are brought into that context. So they are made to fit that context. Bollywood music is really, really interesting and is pretty much a genre unto its own, and is well worth study, actually, just to basically see how well the two kind of cultures, as well as their two intonations, as well as their two systems of musics, have come together and actually work. So well worth investigating, for sure. Old School Funk and Soul says a lot of Western pop artists are incorporating Indian and Asian music. Yeah, that's becoming more and more so. I think, people like Madonna was interested a little bit in it. The Beatles certainly were, for a period, quite interested in Indian music. They kind of went and studied with people like Ravi Shankar for a while. And so, there's a whole bunch of songs that are on the Sgt. Pepper's record that are influenced by some of those sounds, and subsequent records as well. But it was really just a bit of, to be honest, I mean, I don't upset Beatles fans, but essentially it was a bit of a fad for them, really. It was something that they kind of, they played around with, they tried, they experimented, and then they decided, well, it really wasn't for them. And so they kind of broadly moved on from not only embracing the culture, but also embracing the music, and it really didn't play much further part in the development of their songwriting. But they did what most Western musicians in the 1960s weren't really doing, and so they exposed the Western world to those kind of music, and people started getting more interested in not only the culture and not only some other things from India being brought in, but they started getting into the music as well and bringing that into Western music as well. And of course, Bollywood is born in the midst of all of that as well. Old School Funk and Soul says, I was amazed at the Toolbox macro tutorial. Looking forward to using this toolbar in some mix work I planned. Cool. Mike says, I heard some interesting Indian rap music the other day. They're definitely incorporating Western sound. Yeah, they certainly are. Peter Gabriel comes to mind on World Music Thing. And also Paul Simon's Gracelands is a brilliant record, because it's a really, really nice blend of Western music with Senegalese African music as well. And so it featured African musicians as well as Western pop and jazz musicians, like Steve Gadd was very prominently on that record. Anthony Jackson, the bass player, was on very prominently on that record. Steve Kahn, the guitarist, was on there. Michael Brecker and Randy Brecker, both jazz musicians, tenor sax and trumpet respectively, were both on there. And they had a whole bunch of African musicians on there as well. So really nice blend of African and Western music. Fortunately, African music and Western music kind of goes quite well together, largely because that's how blues music developed. Blues music was this crashing together of traditional African field songs with kind of church music and marching songs and those kind of things, and folk music, English folk music. All those three things, and some Irish folk music, all of those things came together at the end of the 19th century, beginning of the 20th century, and hey presto, you have blues being born, and out of blues you get jazz. Out of blues and jazz you get rock music. Out of blues and jazz and rock music you get hip hop and a whole bunch of other things, and heavy metal and everything else as well. So yeah, I mean, what we now call Western popular music has its roots firmly in Europe, the United States, and probably, if it had 3 feet, its third foot would be in Africa. But yes, that's an interesting point to make there. The younger Indian generation are now into Indian pop, which is a whole other genre. Yeah, it's definitely a syncretism between Western and Eastern Asian kind of cultures coming together, which is very cool. There are some real Indian songs that I really like, and there's some Indian music that I really don't like. But, you know, here's the thing. People have perfect pitch. You would think that having perfect pitch would mean that your sense of pitch is kind of fixed to a Western sense of tonality and a Western sense of intonation. And it kind of is, and it kind of isn't. For a lot of people, it probably is, unless your name is Jacob Collier. Jacob Collier has perfect pitch, as do I. But the thing with Jacob Collier is that he's able to work in microtonal music quite happily, quite comfortably, without his sense of pitch being disturbed. Because his sense of pitch is that finely tuned and that finely fixed in his mind, that he's able to kind of work at the microtonal level quite comfortably. Which is why some of his music is very, very heavily influenced by microtonal concepts. And microtonal music is something I have definitely in the last few years explored, thanks to Jacob kind of exposing that kind of music to me, and that made me go and listen to composers like Charles Ives, and later period Schoenberg, who was beginning to explore the whole idea of microtones and the notes between the cracks. So it is music well worth getting into, and its concepts well worth getting into, because one of the things that Jacob has discovered how to do is, you know, I've often taught here on this show and on particularly the Wednesday show how to modulate, how to change key by using good old 251. So 251 is the key that unlocks any other key. So if I'm in the key of F major, but I want to go to the key of A major, which is a major third away, and now I'm in the key of A major because I did 251 in the key of A, 2 being B minor, 5 being E7, and now I'm in A major. And then if I want to go to G minor, I have to do something slightly different here. Half diminished. And now we're in G minor. Good thing about G minor is I can just do this. And now I'm back home in F major. Now, when you're working with microtonal music, you can actually shift, rather than using a 2-5-1, you can actually shift microtonally between one key and the next key without the listener ever knowing that you've shifted from one key to another. And so he's done things like modulating from E flat major to E major via effectively a 2-5-1 in E half sharp major. Sorry, E. What would it be? Yeah, it would be E half flat major, I should say. And you think, how the heck would you do that? You can't do that on a piano. You can't do that on a piano. You got to do it on something that is able to oscillate up. And you can't do it on a piano because pianos have got fixed strings that are of a fixed pitch. There's no gear lever that will allow you to shift up. So how do you do it? Well, you can do it with the human voice. You can do it by using pitch bend in a DAW. If you're smart enough, you can automate the pitch. And you can make crossfades with the pitch automation so that you can automate up that microtone, that couple of cents. So it can be made to work, and you could probably do it in Studio One. I just haven't figured out how to do it yet, but you could probably do it. Tim Talks Audio is in the house. Hey Tim, good to see you, dude. Welcome. We're talking kind of music and intonation and tonality and that kind of thing at the moment. David Anthony is here. Hello, David. He says, I've seen reference that American Indians had an influence on early blues music too. Yeah, they probably did. They probably did. I would not be surprised. At all. Roger Beckett says that's why he plays all those other instruments. Yeah, Jacob is like me. He's a multi-instrumentalist, although he plays a lot more instruments than I do. But there are some instruments that he doesn't play that I do play. But yeah, he's a wonderful, wonderful piano player. And he plays guitar, he plays bass, he plays drums. He plays various percussion instruments. And he plays other kind of stringed instruments as well. But I don't think I've ever seen him play a trumpet, and I don't think I've ever seen him play a saxophone. So I don't think he plays any brass instruments or woodwind instruments. That's not to say I don't think he could. I think he probably could. He just probably just doesn't dig those kind of instruments. They're just not his thing. But yeah, he could. I'm pretty sure. But yeah, Jacob Collier is one awesome dude, one awesome musician and songwriter. I think the first time I came across Jacob was the video he did where he did his multi-voice plus rhythm section arrangement of the Flintstones theme, which was just, it just blew me away. It was amazing when he did that. Complete with the melodica solo as well. I was just like, wow, this guy has serious talent. Sorry, I've got a really itchy nose. So yeah, that's why I'm kind of scratching my nose at the moment, because it's so itchy at the moment. But yeah, that's Jacob Collier. That's the first time I came across him. And then, of course, he was picked up by Quincy Jones, who was Michael Jackson's producer and Prince's producer. And, you know, Quincy Jones is a great arranger, great record producer, and has multiple Grammys to his name as a producer, as a composer, as an arranger. He writes film scores. He does so many different things. And he picked up Jacob Collier and took him under his wing and developed him as an artist. And now he's phenomenally famous. But, you know, he comes from a very, very small town in England, just outside of Cambridge. But yeah, what a kid. What an incredible musician, for sure. All right, we've got about 10 minutes left. We got any other questions? Seeing as you guys sidetracked me wonderfully onto musics from other cultures. But yeah, those of you that have posted in the chat here, so that really to me means Mike from Music to Motion and Lollipop Guild, I think it was, who were trading hilarious wrong Christmas lyrics, and that's what I'm after. I'm after wrong Christmas lyrics. Chestnuts roasting on the forest fire, Jack Frost skipping out of town, I lay in my bed and dream about early yellow snow cream. Those are the kind of lyrics I want. Those are the kind of lyrics I want for this song. So please email those to me. And if anyone else has equally hilarious misreadings of familiar Christmas lyrics, like Lollipop Guild's ones there, chestnuts roasting on the forest fire. If you've got wrong Christmas lyrics like that, then send them to me and we will compile them into one very, very wrong Christmas song. Just got to keep it family friendly and keep it clean. That's it. Though that's really the only rules. And then together with you guys guiding me in the chat, we will come up with the wrongest Christmas song that's ever been recorded. And then kind of as we go into the week of Christmas week itself, we will feature it in a Sunday night live show. And it should be interesting, to say the least. All right, so let's see. Let's go back down and see. Do we have any more questions? Can I talk about reharmonization? Things like what Dirty Loops does. Dirty Loops are freaking awesome. If you don't know who they are a jazz fusion trio from Europe. I think they're mostly from Sweden. I think they're Swedish. Man, their lead singer, what a voice. Seriously. But he's also got phenomenal piano chops. And what they do, if you've never heard of them before, they have a YouTube channel. Go check it out. But certainly what made them famous was they did songs, they did covers, really, really interesting covers, or fusion covers of pop songs. Like, I think there was a Britney Spears song that they did. And I can't remember the title of it right now. That features really, really interesting jazz harmony and a fantastic groove. They are seriously, seriously talented, young, talented musicians. So how does that all work? Well, reharmonization essentially is putting new chords underneath an already existing melody. And this technique of reharmonizing is as old as music itself. One of the probably the most famous reharmonizers is Bach. Bach was famous as an organist in his church for reharmonizing on the spot when playing hymns for his congregation. He would take very, very traditional hymns of the time, and he'd play through the first couple of verses, and you know, he'd maybe get to the third verse, and and by that point he would be bored of the chord changes. You know, chord changes would be, that kind of thing. After a while, playing in a church and having played on a church organ, that kind of thing does get a little bit boring. So, you got to change it up a little bit to make it a bit more interesting for yourself. So, you know, that's just chords 1, 4, and 5, essentially. And so the idea is that you listen to or you read the original melody and you look at the notes that make up the melody of any particular measure of the song, and you go, what chord, other than the given chord, will fit those notes without it just sounding completely weird and wrong? So, you know, maybe instead of going... which is fine, but maybe you do something a little bit different, like... and you use the flat 2 chord instead of 5, you know. That works. Or I've done that so many times in church and nobody ever notices that I've done it. But, you know, maybe you do something a little bit more extravagant, you know. That would work just as well. It depends upon what the melody notes are for the particular song that you're working with. But that's essentially what reharmonization is putting new chords underneath an existing melody. And you can be as adventurous as you like, because essentially there can be hundreds of different potential chords for it to harmonize a particular note. So let's take one particular note. Let's take the note A. Well, there's the obvious one, A. And D will fit over that quite nicely. But so will F. And so will B flat major 7. And so will E flat major 7 flat 5. And so will A flat 7 flat 9. And so will D flat major 7 flat 13. Now we're getting a little bit more exotic here, and also C13 will fit. And of course A minor will fit. F sharp minor. B minor will fit. And of course G add 9 will also fit. So there's a whole bunch of different chords you can put in that will work with just that one note. So you can do that for any of the notes in the melody. And then it's a case of finding the chords that best fit together and voice lead smoothly between one and the other. I mean, those kind of ones that I chose there, I chose specifically because they voice lead nicely between one and the other without sounding too completely weird. Jonny Gives in the house, which is awesome. So yeah, that's Circus. That's the song, Circus. Yeah, and you know what? I actually prefer Dirty Loops' version of Circus to the original. David Anthony says, what's the best way to move songs and other data from one computer running Studio One 6 to another using Studio One 6? Well, there is a knowledge base article, which I am going to go and grab, and I'm going to put it in the chat, because this beautifully answers the question. Let me see. Let me go find it. Hang on a second. Whoa. Knowledge base. Let me Let's see if I can find it for you. Bear with me 1 minute, and I'm going to find this article for you. Is it in the Studio One 6 section already? Let me see if I can find it. I know we have this article. Might not be in the Studio One 6 section. Let's see if I can find it by typing in. Here we go. All right, here it is. And I'll put it up on the screen for you as well. So this is the article here. It's in the Studio One 5 knowledge base in the how-to tips and tricks section. And basically this article outlines things to be aware of when you move Studio One songs, copying a song folder from one computer to another to avoid the most common issues involved with doing that. So with audio files, make sure that all of the reference audio files and samples are collected into the song folder. So that means if you're working on a song and you've used external files from different sources, make sure that you copy those to the media folder. And the best way to do that is to right-click in the pool and choose the option to copy external files. And when you do that, they will all be copied to the media folder, which is in the song folder. This can be accomplished by opening song, going to the pool browser tab, right-click and select copy external files. The other way of doing it is Studio One has an option that will remind you to do this on a regular basis as you work. So for example, when you save and you've brought in external files, a dialog box will come up. So in Studio One options or preferences on a Mac, go to locations, then use the data, and there's a checkbox there asked to copy external files when saving the song. Check that box. And then the next time you save a song where you've brought in external files, it will ask you, do you want to copy? And you just hit yes every time. Don't even think about it. Just hit yes. This will ensure all referenced audio follows the song folder if you move or copy it to another computer. This will cover most singular third-party sample content like drum samples and similar things. So, moving on to sound sets. Any songs that have used a .soundset content from Studio One will need to have those same sound sets installed on the other computer. For example, if you've used some sound sets from the Culture Toolbox, if the other computer does not have that installed, then when you load up that same song on that computer, you will get a missing files dialog that shows, hey, these sound sets don't exist on this computer. So you want to make sure that both computers have the same set of Studio One sound sets. So make sure that they have those, and then the same goes for third-party plugins. So with all of that said, make sure if you are wanting to copy all of your songs, so your entire archive of all of your songs, then what you want to do is you want to locate the root songs folder on the main computer, and then copy that to an external drive. So literally just copy and paste that folder to an external drive, and then on your new computer, connect the external drive to your new computer, and then copy that songs folder from that external drive to the new location that you set up in Studio One, options or preferences, locations, user data. And make sure that that path is listed there. And then that way, when you move those songs, all of those songs will open on your new computer without any trouble, and you won't get missing files errors. Anytime you get missing files errors, either from missing sound sets or missing audio files, it's because songs don't have reference material that it was used to referencing existing anymore. So links to previous reference points are broken when you move from one place to another. So the best way to make sure that that does not happen is to copy the root directory, the root songs directory. And then that means that everything that is inside that, all of your individual songs folders, will move with them at the same time, including all of those reference folders for, you know, things like the media files and everything like that. So this is important. I'm going to drop this in the chat. Thank you, Mike. Thanks for sending me those lyric ideas. That's cool. United Effects is here. He says, greetings from Montreal, Quebec. I'd like to read that article. There you go. The link is in the chat there. Go grab that link, and then you can read that really carefully. But the fundamental thing, as I said, is make sure you copy the root song folder. Same is, you know, the same situation exists for, let's say you want to share a song folder with somebody else so that they can work on it. And you're not a member of PersonaSphere, and you don't want to work with workspaces. You just want to work with Dropbox. Send the song folder. Don't send the .song file. If you send the .song file, the song will open, but there'll be nothing in it. It will be empty because it will not reference the media folder which is on your computer. So you send it to your friend in Australia. Your friend in Australia opens up the .song file. There's nothing there because you have the media folder. They don't. So send them the song folder, or a copy of the song folder, I should say. And then when they open that on their computer, everything is there that they need to work on that particular song. And there should be no missing files errors if you do that. So I hope that that helps. That's a good question, though. Hey, Simon. Simon Carpenter's here as well, which is cool. Night Effect says, a friend who I just spent 2.5 months touring with is sending me an 8-core Mac. Awesome. Never used a Mac before. Thinking of using it for only music and digital art. Any pros or cons to that? There are pros and cons to either PC or Mac. Both have their strengths. Both have their weaknesses. Mac OS is, compared to Windows, fairly convoluted and maybe overly complicated because there are two libraries. There's one that's hidden and there's one that's not hidden. And even then, there are two other libraries. So there are two non-hidden libraries and there's one hidden library on the computer. And you have to make sure that when you are searching for something that you're looking in the right library. Because there's a user shared library, and then there's your personal library, and then there's the hidden library, which is a hidden systems library. So things like crash reports for Studio One, they will be in a hidden library. And there's, all sorts of other stuff that's in the hidden library as well. So Macs are a little bit more convoluted because they are based on a Linux system, whereas PC, it's a little less convoluted. The folder hierarchical structure is a little bit more straightforward on a Windows PC. But there are weaknesses with the PC compared to the Mac as well. For a start, a PC is built out of a lot of different parts made by different manufacturers. A Mac, everything is made by Apple, with the exception of the Intel chips. Those Intel chips have been made by Intel, but everything else, all the rest of the infrastructure and the hardware of the computer is made by Apple. Whereas with a PC, it's made up of a lot of different parts, made by different manufacturers, and you have to hope that they all play nice together. So there's that. And Macs are ridiculously expensive. That's the other thing. So, whilst your Mac may last a good while, especially if it is a new Mac, like a 2021 Mac or even a 2022 Mac, it will last you a good few years, for sure. But if it's an older Mac, eventually you won't be able to upgrade it past a certain point, and you'll need to purchase a new Mac, and those are expensive. For the price you pay for one Mac that is good and fast enough to run Studio One and, virtual symphony libraries, orchestral libraries, and that kind of thing, it's going to cost like $4,000 or $5,000. And you could buy 2 PCs that will do exactly the same job for that price. And I'm not kidding. So there are different pros and different cons. So Mike at Music to Motion has an after show Zoom. If you would like to attend, then please do follow that link after the show. We are 10 minutes over time, but I've got carried away with your questions. Thank you very much, everybody, for coming tonight. You guys have been awesome. I really appreciate you coming. Hang on just a second. What have I done? Oh, there we go. I thought I'd lost the stream for a second. I was just like, no, I've lost the stream. So we peaked at 19, which is a very low attendance for our show. So please tell your friends about Sunday Night Live who you think would be interested in coming along and asking their questions. That's what this show's for. If you have a particular topic you would like me to cover, like Tony had tonight, he had this whole thing about tuning, which then led to a whole bunch of questions on intonation and equal temperament, which is great. Those are fantastic. If you've got a topic that you would like me to cover on a Sunday Night Live, drop me an email. Go to the web address at the bottom there, jonnylipshamstudios.co.uk. At the bottom, there's a contact form. Fill out that contact form and put the subject as Sunday Night Live show idea, and put in the details in the email. And you know, I want to build a nice little collection of subjects suggested by you that we can cover over the next several months. So please get them in. If you have not subscribed, hit the subscribe button. If you like this live stream, then hit the like button as well. Likes are always good and helpful to me. And if you'd like, perchance, to make a donation, there's a link to that in the description below as well. You can hit my PayPal, paypal.me. I think it's /Jonny Lipsham. I think it is. So go check that link out there and send me a couple of dollars if you would like to. But only if you'd like to. There's no compulsion. Thank you very much, everybody. And I will see you guys all on Wednesday for Songwriting Simplified with my partner in crime, Mr. Jonny Gibe. Good night, everybody.